Welcome to week 3 of Central highlighting our strengths-based culture vision for this year. Last week we got to hear Marla Lobley talk about what we hope our potential outcomes are. I ran us through a strengths exercise and we had Katie Netherton talking about her 2 strengths. This week I'm going to be talking about the idea of what happens when we don't see someone else's strengths. Or what happens when we're not curious enough to see someone else's strengths. And we're going to have our good friend Madi Wolf is going to be talking about her strengths of learner and developer. So I want to start by reading the passage that this initiative comes from. The big conviction comes from Genesis 1, where it said, "Then God said, 'Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. Let humanity have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth.' So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. Then God blessed them, and God said to them, 'Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it. Have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on the earth.' And God said, 'See, I have given you every herb that yields seed, which is on the face of all of the earth, and every tree whose fruit yields seed. To you it will be for food. Also to every beast of the earth, to every bird of the air, and to everything that creeps on the earth in which there is life, I have given you every green herb for food.' And it was so. Then God saw everything that he had made, and indeed it was very good. So the evening and the morning were the 6th day." So God, he makes humanity, he makes all of creation, right? So he makes the earth, he makes the sun, makes the moon, makes the fish in the ocean, makes animals, makes plants, and then he makes humanity. And there's something different about humans, right? They were made in his image. There's something different about them. They're image bearers. Humans are made in his image. And when you think of what makes a human, the interesting thing about humans is that they're just a bunch of whole-uns. They're a bunch of complete things that make up something else that's complete, right? We got organs that are just these complete entities. We've got atoms that make up these organs. We got these organs that make up these bodies, right? We've got minds, we've got souls, we've got spirits. But the thing about the material is it's easy to see. The thing about the material body, the material human, is that it's easy to see, it's easy to examine. And sure, we can get an idea of something about God through the material, but it's the immaterial, it's the internal, it's the thing you can't see unless you're really looking for it, that teaches us something about the likeness of God, about God's image. And so humans are made in the image of God, right? That's the conviction here. But we're left with the question, if humans are made in the image of God, why can humans be so annoying? Right? People just they bother us, right? People do stuff that bother us. They're made in the image of God, but why is that so hard to see? Why are there so many people that seem to just annoy us? I have a conviction there. I have a thought, I have a theory. And the theory is that apathy is not the opposite of judgment. Being apathetic about someone is not the opposite of judgment. It might help us avoid judging someone, but it's not the opposite. I would say that curiosity is the opposite of judgment. That curiosity is the opposite of judgment. I want to start with the story of someone who greatly annoyed me. So, I'm going to be honest, being on staff at a church, everyone just kind of thinks that they can speak to every aspect of your life. And in some regards, they can, right? You open up your life for them. You bring them into your home. You're teaching. You're called to be above reproach. And you get a lot of feedback. And I had a situation where there was someone who was, several years ago, when I was on staff at a church in Simi Valley, California, had a different complaint about me that they would say to me every time I saw them. So if I saw them on a Sunday morning, and then I turned around and saw them at the building on a Tuesday night, and then they were up there on Friday night, that was 3 complaints I was getting to them for that week. And it was like, it could be big things sometimes, and sometimes it could be little things, like, hey, I didn't really like the outfit you wore when you preached this last time. Hey, do you think that maybe you should try feeding the students something other than pizza? Right? Like it was always something. Like it was a complaint. It was input is what it was. And so as I started to like look at this person and trying to figure out like, okay, where is this coming from? Instead of looking from a place of annoyance, what I realized was they desired input. And not only did they desire their own input, they desired everyone else's input. They just wanted to be a part of the conversation. So if I would intentionally invite them into the conversation to help us figure out things we were doing in our ministry, not only would that stop them from coming to me and complaining every time they saw me, but sometimes they had some really good ideas that led our ministry well. And I think that's people. I think if we're annoyed at people, maybe there's something about the image of God that lives inside of them that we haven't learned yet. Like maybe if instead of judging them, we got curious, there'd be something about the image of God that we could learn, and we would ultimately be closer to God than we were before we got curious about that thing that annoyed us. The strengths language that we're trying to adopt at Central can help us stay curious. There's a lot of ways to stay curious. There's a lot of ways to stay curious about people, and I think we should explore all of them. The strengths-based language is one of them. So with the Clifton strengths, there are 34 themes of strength. Many of you are going to take this, but most of you are going to take the high 5 assessment, which there's 20 themes of strength in that one. Because it's the language I'm a little more familiar with, I have written the 34 themes of strength behind me. And I want to give us a strengths exercise this week that will help us learn to practice curiosity with other people's strengths. So this exercise we're going to do this week is going to greatly help us see this. It's going to help us have and practice curiosity for other people's strengths. And I'm really excited for us to dive into this. So what you're going to do is we are going to provide a link connected to the stream this week that will give you a list and description of all 34 StrengthsFinder themes. And on that list, I want you to look through it, read some of the descriptions, and find a theme that you don't believe you are strong in. Or maybe even a theme where you read it and you're like, oh, I've seen someone living that out and it actually annoyed me. So an example of this is my wife is super emotionally intelligent, and we're going to hear about that next week. And that theme doesn't annoy me at all. Like that's actually a really exciting theme for her to have. But I am not an empath. Like I am not strong in empathy. And I think the world is better because we have people that are strong in empathy, even if I'm not one of those people. So what I want you to do is I want you to find a theme that you're not strong in. So for example, this week I would find empathy. And now I want you to identify someone in your life that is strong in that theme. So for example, I'd identify my wife, Brooke. And then the next thing I want you to do is I want you to write that person a letter, and I want you in that letter to tell them why you believe the world is better for them having that strength. Why is the world better for that person having that strength? And I want you to give them that letter. Now to you this may seem small, but when someone is curious about the things that we are good at, amazing things happen. Anyways, Central, we will see you next week to talk about emotional intelligence. You guys have a great week. We'll see you Wednesday. Central, welcome back. I'm sitting here with one of our college students, Maddie. Maddie, go ahead and tell them a little bit about yourself.
I am an ECU student right now attending Cameron's college group. I am studying nursing at ECU and I work at Mercy currently in labor and delivery.
Yes. And Maddie is a saint because she's married to one of our other college students, recently graduated, Dalton Wolf. So if you don't know Maddie, you might know Dalton and vice versa. Okay, so Maddie, you've been a part of our college ministry for several years now. So you've been kind of immersed in this strengths-based culture. You went through our series on it, Imago Day, and even when we were doing premarital counseling with you and Dalton, we used the strengths-based language to kind of go through that. So you're pretty familiar with it. You've been through strengths-based conversation. Today, we're more just going to highlight 2 of your strengths. So I wrote down your strengths. We have Maddie's 5 themes are empathy, developer, individualization, learner, and input. So you have a pretty strong learner-developer pairing, and so we're going to highlight those today. So the definition of learner is curious. They love to learn in many areas, and they simply enjoy the process of learning. For developer, it's they see nothing but potential in others. They have a strong belief that everyone has potential and can grow. So I want to start by asking you a question to highlight those 2 things, which is what are some hobbies that you're into? Or something you're interested in?
I really like reading.
Okay.
I'm actually rereading the Harry Potter series right now.
Beautiful. Which one are you on?
Sorcerer's Stone.
Sorcerer's Stone, okay.
I just started it.
Yeah, awesome. And how did you get into reading?
As a kid, I actually couldn't read very well. I have like a slight lazy eye.
Okay.
And so like it wanders a little bit.
Oh, gotcha.
And so I learned early on that by reading, it kind of helped train it. And so I really just picked up reading as a hobby when I was younger to try and help that. But then it became something that I really loved doing.
That's pretty cool. So you picked it up as almost like a exercise, and then you just fell in love with the exercise. That's awesome. And so I was gonna ask why you like to learn, but I hear like even as a child, like it seemed like you had to learn to like to learn. Is that like a fair statement?
Yeah.
So why today do you currently still like to learn?
I like being that person that people can like rely on. So like if you have a question about something, I like having the answer and it being a right answer and not something that I just found.
Okay.
I like being reliable.
Yeah.
I guess.
That like hits like something really funny that I know about you. And so like you're a nursing student and you're almost done and you even like work at a hospital. And I would venture to say that you like most of our college students have actually like replaced their primary care doctor with just asking you medical questions. So like
they do that very often.
Yeah, so I see that like practical side of things where that's so funny. So would you say that you're a relational learner or a practical learner?
I don't know, maybe a little of both.
Okay, explain. What's like an example of that?
Like practical, I think that sometimes I learn better by doing and like by it applying to me in my life. Like I'm about to start studying mother-baby, which I work in labor right now, but I haven't taken that class yet, and I'm about to. And Dalton's sister actually just had her baby, and so I had gotten my books in while she was pregnant, and so it was kind of cool to go through those chapters while she was actually experiencing it, like in real life.
Sure.
And so I felt like that was pretty practical learning, because like it's hands-on and like I'm seeing it right in front of me. And same with like the disease right now, the virus.
Yeah.
Like learning about respiratory diseases and stuff in school. It was easy to learn about that at this time because it's like going on in our world right now, so you can actually see it happening. So and it makes it easier for me to learn when it's practical to my life.
Sure. Like if you can find that connection between the two. You just gave me one, and I feel like you've been giving this even more, but I like hate to not ask this question of Like, what's something you've learned that's made someone's life better, or like made their character better, or made them more of an equipped person?
When I was going through in school, the lungs and stuff, and Dalton used to be a smoker, and as I was going through it, of course I probably didn't handle it the right way, but I learned like all the bad stuff about smoking, and I'd come home and be like, this is what you're doing to your lungs, right? And show him pictures and show him people who have smoked for years and what happens. And I think I just kind of scared him into stopping. But I mean, he doesn't anymore, so
Yeah.
that, I guess, something like that, like it made
No,
his
that's
life
great.
better.
Yeah. I'll tell you, you are like, if you see something in my life that needs to be developed, you're more than welcome to bully me and to becoming better. So, no, that's great. I want to ask, like, what, I guess, so I've kind of a two-part question. One, what are the type of people that you like to develop or see become better? And do you have, like, an early, like, childhood, like, memory of developing someone else?
I feel like I'd like to see everybody become better. Like, not that, like, I'm holding everyone up to a super high standard, but, like, I feel like I see what you can be,
Yeah.
And I'd love to, like, help you get there. In our early childhood, my family wasn't always in church. Like, I did grow up in church, but there would be, like, months where we would go, and then there would be, like, 6 months where we wouldn't go, and it was just because there were 4 of us, and so Mom and Dad, it's a lot to get 4 kids up and ready every week to go to church. And so I think that there would just be times where they'd be exhausted, but then it would fall into, like, months and months. And we'd go through that pattern growing up, so I thought that it was normal at first. And then I got in high school and, like, actually got really involved in FCA and a bunch of organizations, and I was like, oh, like, this isn't normal the way that we're doing this. And so I actually convinced my family to, like, go back during one of the drier spells.
Wow.
And, like, really got them going and got into church, started going to Harmony, and then met Dalton, and so I feel like that, like, early on, I was kind of the reason that I got them really plugged back in and going again in church.
Wow. So that's like you, an entire, like, people group, like your entire family, you were able to get pulled. And knowing your, like, I don't know your parents super well, but, like, knowing your brothers, you can see kind of the fruit of that, of, like, who Wyatt is as a human, like, who Trevor and Trenton are.
They weren't always like that. Like, Wyatt growing up was, I mean, he was kind of a jerk. Like, in high school.
He's such a sweetheart. I can't even imagine it.
Now it was like a complete change when he got older and, like, realized what he was doing with his life. But he'll admit it. Like, he's sat down with me before and is like, I just didn't treat you very good in high school. And I remember one time waking everyone up on a Sunday and being like, come on, like, we're all going to church together. And Wyatt, of course, was the one that was always like, no, like, I'm not doing that just because you want to, and, like, you want to look cool in front of your friends. I think that's why you're doing this. And really resisted, but we finally got him in there, and I feel like it's really changed him. Wow. So yeah, I think it's really cool to look back at. I've never really thought about it.
No, own that. That's such a cool part of your story. Like, that's that's unique. Like, that's unique to I think you recognize some of your themes, like, pretty early on, and took action and, like, used those to lead your family. And that's, like, man, I can only hope, like, my daughter would, like, feel comfortable enough to lead in her family that much. So that's amazing. Before we kind of log off and get out of here, is there anything you feel like the people at home who are watching this need to know about this strengths-based language?
I think that it's good to be aware of your strengths and be aware of your partner's strengths and of, I don't have kids, but probably your kid's strengths too, because after me and Dalton did it, just knowing his helps me see him different because we're kind of opposites. Yeah. And so being able to see what his strengths are and how he learns, I can kind of word things maybe sometimes if I'm trying to get him to see a point in the way that will help him learn versus what I think helps me learn. So it makes it easier for us to just go through day-to-day life, honestly.
That's great. And I have to point out that you just talked about learning and developing when you're answering that question. So that's like the perfect way to sign off. I love that. Anyway, Central, thanks for being with us this week. We'll see you next week.
And boom goes the dynamite.